All right, here we are in Blender. Now what we're going to do is delete the default cube, and I am going to come up here to add image mesh plane. We're going to go find our image that I have here. And to find this image, all you have to do is look in, not this particular image, but an image like this. You can either create it with AI, create it yourself, take a photo you have, or go find one online by looking in Google and typing in storefront. And this one was under vintage storefront. So if I click on import images as planes, we will have our image here. I'm going to come over here and scale it up and move this higher up. And then what we're going to do, because we can't see our image, is just come over here and turn on our viewport shading to material preview. All right, there's our image. We're going to go to the X axis and we're going to chop this apart using loop cuts. So we're going to go over here into edit mode or hit tab on your keyboard. And we're going to scroll down until we get to loop cut. And when you go up to an edge, the loop cut's going to appear in the center of that edge. We go to this side edge, it's going to appear here. And before we click anything, we're going to hover over that edge to where we can see that line. And then we're going to click and drag down to right here where the wall meets the sidewalk and let go. And now we have a loop cut there. We're going to move our cursor over this edge. It will make another one between this one and this one. But if we move our cursor over this edge, we can create another one here and click and drag right on the corner of that sidewalk. And we're going to click right here and click and drag until we get one between the in the corner of the curb meeting the street. Now in rotating our view around a little bit, we're going to come up here to face mode, select our move tool, and we're going to grab the two bottom faces, click and shift click the other one and pull those outward, which will give us basically our sidewalk. We're going to move these up now to where they're essentially flat like a sidewalk would be. And then we're going to take the street down here and we're just going to grab that edge. So we're going to go to edge mode, grab the far edge here and just pull it out and then lift it up. Now it is going to stretch the leaves, but we can replace this later. And now we have basically our sidewalk, curb, and street set up from just a couple of moves. Now what we want to do is we want to separate these from the wall. So I'm going to go over here to face mode again, and we're going to select the sidewalk, the curb front, face, and the street. Right click, and we're going to come down here to separate and go over here to by selection. You can also hit P on the keyboard when those are selected. So now it's a separate selection. We can go back into object mode and you can see now the wall can be selected separately from the street and sidewalk. We're going to select the wall and we're going to go back into edit mode, back onto the X axis, and now we can make some more loop cuts here. So to make as few cuts as possible, we're just going to cut out this big central section first. So we're going to go here to our loop cut tool, hover over the line and pull it upward so we get approximately to the top. Now, if your image stretches, you want to make sure that correct UVs is checked on, otherwise you'll get stretching. We're going to come up to the top here and we're going to move our line over until we get to this outer edge and let go. And we're going to do the same thing from the center to the right edge and let go. And then from the middle here again, we're going to pull down until we get right to that bottom edge. And this will be the entire front facing section of the building here. So if we angle around and we select face mode and we go ahead and get our move tool and we select the faces, or at least the face of that section, We could have also selected this here at the bottom, and we're going to pull that out using our region, extrude region. And this whole section will now come out however far we need it to. Something like this will work for now. Select anywhere, and you can see that it is its own separate piece. We're going to reselect all of these outer edges, including the tiny ones at the bottom. Including the very bottom one as well. And we're going to right click, come down to separate, selection. So now that is its own piece. Any cuts we do to this will not affect the wall anymore. It's its own separate section, which is what we want. We're going to come back to object mode. We can select the wall separately. We can select the section separately, the sidewalk, and so on. We're going to select this front section, and then we're going to go back into edit mode again. Go back to your x-axis. We're going to start chopping this thing up. Now we have one section here that I know for a fact needs to be pulled out more than the others. So we're going to start there. We're just going to grab our loop cut and drag it up until we're at the top of that shelf. We're going to do another one here and from that edge until we are at the bottom of that shelf. Now, if we rotate around again, we can grab our move tool and our face mode. We can select this face and go to extrude region and pull that out to however far it needs to be, approximately this far. And now we have something that looks like this. Don't worry about the stretching around these edges. We will take care of that either with a painting program, Photoshop, Substance Painter, or we can actually sample from other parts of this image oftentimes to correct any of the stretching that's happening. So now back from your x-axis again, we're going to make another loop cut. From the center, we're going to slide this over until we get a top to bottom line this way. We're going to do another one from the center over until we get it on the opposite side as well. And now we'll be able to pull out these two side sections from the rest. So we're going to come in here and grab those faces, the move tool, select those particular faces that we want to move forward. And now we will grab the extrude region tool and pull those forward to a degree. Now for these sconce things, we could resculpt those, which is what I would suggest you do. But if we want to try and give a basic form of these, there's one way to do it. We could go back to our x-axis. We can then come over, and you could be as detailed about this as you want to be, but this is the simple way. We're going to go to our loop cut, grab it, slide upward to the bottom here. We're going to scroll around to the side, and we're basically going to move the tops of these at an angle. So I'm going to go to my tweak tool there, or the move tool. Move is a good one, but we can select that line and this line as well, and then move those forward, essentially giving us that angle of that piece. Now, if you wanted to come in here and cut this and detail it up, that would be up to you if you like. But that basically is our overall front. If we wanted to pull the tops of these guys out, I would suggest maybe doing that as well. So to do that, once again, right from the front view, we can add another loop cut coming from the side. Let's pull that up to about here. We can pull those out. We can also angle out the tops, but let's just pull the fronts of those out by going to our face mode. Go ahead and swinging around until we can shift select these faces, and then we are going to extrude region and pull those forward some. If you do want an angle on those, it's very easy to take care of. We just go to edge select, select this edge, select this edge. If we wanted to, then we can just push those back to create an angled front on that piece. Pretty simple. This is just very, very basic, but you get the idea. And as well, if you wanted to make this molding stick out a little farther, we could come in here once again from the front. We could add another loop cut right across the front here. So maybe something like there. And then go back into our face mode and our move tool. Grab these two faces. We could go back now to the extrude region, pull those out slightly, and then just select the top one and pull it out a little farther to where they will step out like a sort of a stair-stepped effect. And if you wanted to, you could even cut inward on these, which we could try that very quickly just to get this going, but you're going to have a few more cuts here. But what I suggest is separating this whole section out before we do that. And to do that, we're going to need to select all of its faces and make sure they are a separate part. So we're going to come in here and go to a select box and just select all of these faces for this that we want to keep. Make sure you swing around and have selected all of the others. We're going to not, yes, we're going to select all of these upper parts. Just make sure when you swing around and look, you don't miss any of these faces. There are quicker ways of selecting all of these parts, but this works fine. I'm just working slow so I don't lose anybody. And just grab all of the parts of this that are not part of this front. Move to the sides, make sure you get the little guy on the side and anything under. Now, to be a little easier doing this, let's turn off the visibility of the street. We could just grab these ones here, as well as these, the inner ones there, because it is kind of easy to miss some of them. And I believe there, if we turn off our street, I'm pretty sure we have everything we need now. So now we can right click, separate selection. We're going to go back and check by turning off everything except for that one part. We can do the same by swapping out and selecting the opposite part of that. And I believe everything there is good to go. Once again, don't worry about these stretch places. Those will be corrected later on in the UV. So with this piece selected now, we can go ahead and cut these little reservoirs here. We're going to do that by just looking from the x-axis. We're going to readjust here. And I'm just going to cut out the little parts I want to push back or bring forward. The little parts I want to bring forward. Then we'll worry about the centers after that. Okay, so now going out and selecting the object, coming back into edit mode, I'm going to grab my loop cut and we're going to create a loop cut right outside of that frame. I'm going to grab my loop cut and drag another one over here. We're going to grab from the center and do another one here. And we're just going to keep going until we outline all of these framed portions. Now we have these boxes on the bottom that we can now pull outward. So I'm going to grab those faces in face mode. I'm going to grab this one, and this one, shift clicking. We're going to grab extrude region. We're going to pull those out slightly. Something like that. And this is going to be kind of crudely done. I'm going to go back here now and If you want, you could separate these to keep from getting a whole lot of polygons going on here, but since this is its own separate object, I'm not going to worry about that too much. But I'm going to go ahead and loop cut again from here to the inside like so, and inside of this one. We're going to go here to the inside of this one and to the other side of it. And then one more time here, and one more time to the side of that. And then we're going to do one last one that goes to the inside top of all of them. The point of this now will be when we go to face mode, we will select those faces here, shift click all of them, and we're going to extrude those back inward to get that nice raised framework around those pieces. So once again, we're going to come back and turn on all of our sections again. You can see that's going pretty well so far. You can detail this up as much as you want, but this is just the general way that this could be done. I mean, you could reshape these. You can also push all this in and adjust everything. But just for the purposes of this video, this is how easy this could be done. We can also angle this guy, which we can chop it up in as many pieces as we want, but let's just put an angle on it for now. And we do that by going back to edge mode, selecting our edges, holding down Alt when we select, so it'll select the entire edge. And we're going to move this edge forward on the X-axis just to give us a little bit of an angle on this as well. And if you want all of this to come out with it, just shift select that row as well, then move the whole thing forward. And now it feels a little better. Cool. Now, if we wanted to, we could break this up, separate ledges and whatnot, but this is just the general cutting apart for you guys for this video. So now for these, the rest of this is going to be one big block here that will come out a little bit more than the rest of this. So I'm going to pull this piece out a little bit as well. We're going to come in here and we're going to select the object that it is on right here. We need to go from the X axis here. We also want to make sure that we go back into object mode and select it. Come back into edit mode on that object now, and we're going to add in another loop cut right about here. And this will allow us to extrude this section forward. So we're going to grab that and we're going to go back to our face selection, and we're going to click that face and pull it forward so it hangs out over the rest of this stuff. And we're pretty good to go. I think I want to push this back just a little bit so we basically have a bit of molding edge here. So we're going to go ahead and click on loop cut and pull one down to that point. And then we could extrude this one out, or we can push this one in, I believe, at this time. So I'm just going to go back to our extrude region, click on that guy and push this back in a little. And from the front now, we're going to take care of all these little boards that stick out. We just have to go through and draw the little squares for our loop cuts. With this board pulled out, we do want to separate it from the rest of the storefront because we don't want all of these cuts to cut through our windows. What we're going to do is select those faces that make up this board here, and this guy and this guy and the one underneath. We're going to right click and we're going to separate those by selection as well. We're going to go back into object mode. We're going to click on that object and we're going to go back into edit mode now, singling it out. So what we want to do is jump back to the straight on the X axis here. And now we're going to make some loop cuts that go up and down and side to side. I'm going to click on loop cut and we're just going to make this one go across the bottoms of those guys. And now we're going to go ahead and knock some out this way. We're just going to keep doing this until we have all of these boards cut out. From the front here. This goes pretty quick after a while. You just start to get used to the concept. And one here and one there. So now we have all those outlined. So if we want to, we can be in face mode. We can go to extrude region. We can click on each one of these, holding shift. And we can pull all of those out. And now they work just like the supports would. In fact, now we can go here to these edges, the lower edges of each one. And either push them back in or bevel them. I'm going to bevel these. So we just push those in, and then we go to our bevel here. And now we can pull out and get a nice bevel. It's not rounded, but it works well. And anything else you want to do, once again, we can go ahead and cut that and pull that one forward a little to give that a little more dimension, which I guess I suggest doing. So one more loop cut right across these guys. And we can select in face mode all of these faces. And if we shift select on a line after we've got a couple in a line, it will select all the rest of those. And now we can go ahead and extrude region on that and pull it forward just a little bit to give us that piece of molding on the top there. You can bevel any of those corners that you like as you go as well. So now we have a couple different things we can do. We can come up and we can create these little pillar things. This is just pretty much a little ugly little block. We can do that or leave it. It makes no difference to me. But to get the rest of this going, that's what I would suggest doing here, is to start working on these windows and this large door section. I'm not going to worry about this bench at this point. This can be painted out and replaced with an actual object. And then I'll show you guys kind of how to straighten out the sidewalk and stuff without messing up the textures, and how to fix all this stuff on the side. To get this sort of wainscoting effect here as well, since this part of the building does not attach to the other, we can go back into object mode, select our wall. From the front, we're going to go into edit mode. We're going to add a loop cut right on top of that edge, and probably do one essentially the same height over here. And now we can grab this face in face mode and this one. And at this point, I think I would do, yeah, just like that. Make sure you get that small little edge at the bottoms of these. That is kind of extra. And then we can go ahead and pull those forward. So just extrude that a little forward as well, and you get that sort of lip of that wainscoting. If you wanted to go in here and be detailed and chop that back, you could do that as well. But this is just for the basics right now. Like I said, this side will be retextured. I'm not worried about that. Okay, so one thing I'd like to do now is to chop these windows out separate from this other object. So let's go ahead and turn these other things off. The wall, the ground, that is the wall we're going to keep. So we're going to turn off this piece. We're going to turn off this upper section as well, and you can see what that consists of now. And now we're going to go back into our front object here, and this is what we're going to be working with mainly. It has been separated, so any cuts we make on this will not affect any of the rest of the objects and parts that we've done. And that was the point. So we're going to take this now and essentially chop out any of the rest of these pieces that need to be done. So I think the biggest thing to do is to separate this doorway. And we're going to just grab a couple of loop cuts here by selecting our object, going into edit mode. and hacking away. So we're going to grab our loop cut tool. And from the top here, we're going to just move over until we get to this edge of this molding. I'm going to grab another one and get to the edge of the molding here. And I'm going to come out farther than this post because we also have the bottom of this post to worry about. I'm just going to do those all together, I guess. And I'm going to make another one here for the other side of this post. And you can be as detailed about this as you want. I'm going to fudge it a little bit because you can always fudge it back on your object and on your UVs to correct any of that. But what I've done basically here is separated this out so I can push this doorway in here backwards. And we're not going to worry about the door or the angle off the floor of this. This will be corrected just like it was with the street. So I'm also going to grab and do one more angle or one more line right here at the bottom for the bottom edge. We're just worried about the front facing parts of the doorway. So now we can come in with our face mode and select the faces that we're going to want to push backwards. So I'm going to grab my extrude region and just shove all of this stuff back in here. Don't worry about the stretching. We can fix that later. So there's basically our doorway. And if we wanted to, we could separate this out by selection if we want. It may not be a bad idea at this point. In fact, I think I will do that. A matter of fact, I think what I'm going to do is separate all of this together as one. So from the front, I'm just going to grab all of these polygons here, making sure we got all the side pieces and everything too. I'm going to right click and separate selection. We're going to go back into object mode and we're going to now select this piece and we're going to come over and we're going to go back into edit mode because we're going to work with it now. And I think what I want to do is push the window parts back. So how we're going to do that is we're going to leave this molding pretty much in place first. I'm going to make a couple of loop cuts here to surround this molding here. I'm just going to leave it flat for now. There's another one pretty much right below the window here. We're just going to ignore the bench. And I'm just going to go ahead and say there's one right there too. Then we're going to make another one that's going to take care of the edge of that molding. And another one, well, all right, and that should take care of all of that. So then we're going to push back our window pieces. I'm deciding if I am going to make a little, I think I'm going to make one little one at the top here just to give this something to sit against. Okay, so now what we're going to do is go in here and grab the faces. This window section, this window, this one, and this one, I guess. We're going to push all of those back a certain distance. And once those are back just a little ways, like so, that's more than enough for those panels. We can then separate this by selection again. And I'm not going to worry about the bottom one as much right now. I'm going to worry about just this glass or this window and this window. And we're going to right click and separate selection again, or hit P on the keyboard. Don't P on your keyboard, but hit P on your keyboard. We're going to go back to object mode and we're going to just select that object, hit tab to go back into edit mode again. And now we're going to cut out the frames of these windows. So from your X axis, we're going to now make some more loop cuts that will only affect those sections we just created. So I'm going to come across and bring that up to that edge of that frame and over here, the same from top to bottom here now. Remember, just hover over a side that you want to make this parallel to or perpendicular to. And that will be cutting out that window frame. Now we do need to cut out the little bits here as well. So I'm just going to make a couple of ones that do that, and here as well. So we now have that one completely cut out. We just need to now cut out this one. And that looks good. So now we can come in here and in face mode, click on the glass parts and this big one, and we're going to push those back. So we're going to extrude inward this way a little bit, just to give a thickness to the frame. And then with those still selected, we're going to right click, we're going to go separate selection. Those are separate now, so now we could actually put a glass material on those and not worry about what's in here, because we'll make it a transparent glass material. We can put anything in the store that we want to. So back into object mode, you can see we have this like so. If you wanted to create other windows here, you could now. Very simple to do. And like I said, we're going to paint this out to where we don't have this bench texture on there. It'll just be the texture of the building. All right, so now we're going to select just this portion. And you can see that dimension here. We actually have those pushed back in and everything. Like I said, you go in and detail this up as much as you want, add extra moldings or whatever. That's up to you. But I'm going to hide this section for now, including our windows and our window frames. We're going to select this piece here, and we're going to go back into our edit mode. And I want to separate all of this out the same way that I did the other stuff. So first things first, we're going to do I believe the door frames. Not entirely sure on that, but let's go ahead and say, now you see that there's one problem with this though, is that we have this roof that goes from here to here, and that roof is supposed to be parallel with the floor. So what we're going to need to do is create an edge of our frame right here, and eventually this will all be flattened out inside. If I were to move this now though, we would wind up stretching everything. So we're going to leave that for the moment. And I'm going to dissolve this particular edge since it's not dependent on anything else. Just right click. And I should be able to just click delete, and then we come down here to dissolve edges. And now we have a nice clean area there. All right, we want to dissolve the one over to the side here as well. So select this one, delete it, dissolve edges, just to keep everything nice, clean, and even on all sides. All right, so now we're going to need to create an edge here for all of this. If we want though, we can actually separate these walls and floor. It might not be a bad idea. But what I want to do is make this roof eventually flat. If we bring back the rest of our objects, you'll see what I mean here. This roof is not actually this high in the back. So what we need to do somehow is pull this line up to be that line, if that makes any sense. Because what we're looking at is a parallax here that does not actually exist. So if I were to grab this line, let's just experiment here. I'm going to select A or Alt so that we can pull all of this up at the same time. It's probably going to stretch here because I realize we're connected to that. But if I grab this and move it up now, what we want to do is flatten that roof section out. And I know it looks a little bit odd, but that's actually the more realistic height of everything. So these doors really should be more of the same height. So without parallax, This is what we're talking about here now. And that is a much more correct view of everything, because these windows should be the same size. So let's go ahead and just pull those up slightly more. And now it is the same. It is correct. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And within that object, still, we're going to create a couple of other loop cuts, but I think I'm going to separate this roof and everything now from the rest of this, just to make this easier to manage when we make our cuts. So I'm going to select all of this stuff here, including the floor. In fact, let's turn everything else off so I am not confusing what is part of this and what isn't. Just this section here, I'm going to just marquee select all of these faces, making sure all of that is selected except for that back panel, including, well, I guess that one does belong there. So we're going to right click and separate selection. We're going to come back out to edit mode, object mode. We're going to select that one and hide it. And now we can go back into this face here, or this part, and go back into edit mode. I hope that makes sense. So from the front now, we're going to start chopping out our windows and doors. So I think first things first, the thing that's going to be out the most is going to be this. Plus we have this raised floor I just realized we have that we don't want. So I'm going to put a loop cut in here, and I am going to move that down to the floor right there. And now we're going to have to move this out to match. Let's turn on our other parts again. I realize I'm making this more convoluted than it really should be, but hopefully you're going to get the gist here. This floor should be as low as this floor in here. So we're going to need to select these points of that part. Let me just deselect and reselect those. And then we need to move those points down to match the floor. In fact, we can take these and weld them by hitting M. We're going to merge those at the center, I guess. Take these and merge those at the center to where they're all just one point. So now we have a correct door. We could do the same thing if we wanted to with these by going 1 and 2, merge at last, and then merge at last on this one as well to get rid of that little sliver that is just unnecessary. Okay, once again from the front, now we're going to create this board here, I believe, and I think that will be good. Maybe the door transition at this point, but I think this board is first. So let's just turn off everything else. The light can stay on, but all of this can be off except for our door portion. From the front now, we're going to take that, add a couple of loop cuts from here to here, like so. And we're just going to pull that section forward by selecting the face. Oops. We're going to select the face. We could also make this part stick out more than the rest. That's totally fine too. And the way you would do that is just come in here and make sure we added this loop cut first. And then we can select those faces. And pull those forward first. Then select this one and pull it forward a little bit less than the other. And now you have that sort of section like we did. Simple stuff. One thing we do is we could make this sort of the door transition at the bottom by adding a loop cut right across it. Our extrude region. And we're going to pull that out slightly. We can round that off later if we want. So just that simple. We need to select this face and this face, and we're going to separate those by selection. We're going to go back up into object mode, select just the doors now, and go back into edit mode so we can work on those. I'm going to turn off the door frame. This will be what we are left with. Don't worry about the lamp, that'll be painted out. And we're going to come in and use our loop cuts to now create the glass frame here. And like I said, this is the simple way of doing this. You can go in and detail all this up as much as you want after the fact. We do want a separation between the doors, so I'm just going to do that on those for now. And those will need to be made in as two separate pieces. So I'm going to grab the face of each door, of this one and this one. And we're going to say separate by selection here. Now we have this window and these doors. We're going to go back to object mode. I'm going to leave that alone for a minute. We're going to come back in just to this window. We're going to go back into edit mode, and we're going to go to this piece of glass. We're going to go to the extrude. And we're just going to push that backwards a little bit, and then we're going to right click on it and separate selection to where the frame and the window are two separate pieces. We're going to go back to object mode, click on this object. We're going to go back into edit mode for that. And we need to select to just one door now. I'm going to right click and we're going to go separate selection to where the doors are separated. So we're going to go back into object mode, just click on the first door. Now we can be as detailed as we want with panels and stuff, and I think I might. So we're going to go ahead and go back into edit mode here, and we're going to make a loop cut from the inside of that. We're going to do one from the side of this as well. We're going to do one the edge of that frame. And like I said, we're not going to be super detailed about this. This is really for the explanation purposes of the video. But if we get that, that's going to be our two pieces of glass. This one can be separated out as moldings if you really want to. But this is just a matter of taste kind of thing here. I'm just really kind of showing you guys this can be done. So there is that. Then we can come in with our face select, grab the faces that are going to become the glass of this part. And those look like they do have a molding around them. So I'm going to make one more loop cut up here to finish that molding off. We're going to grab the molding parts first. And it looks like I missed one more loop cut here, right there at the bottom. So now that they're all selected, I will come in here and select all these. And select all of these faces. You can be as precise about this as you want. I'm going to go ahead and select the molding down here as well. Not very precise, but it still works for what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to extrude these forward and then take these pieces here and extrude those back. But let me grab all three, extrude those a little farther back. So we have that. And we just need to do the same thing on the other door. So we jump over to the other door. You can see that has dimension now to it. I'm going to grab this other door from the front and do the same thing. Edit mode. We start making our loop cuts. I'm not going to worry about this section. And then the bottom molding. Okay, and then we grab our faces. I guess I do have to care about this one a little bit. We grab the faces. And once those are grabbed, we can pull them forward. We can extrude them a little bit, and then grab the other panes and extrude them back if that's what we want. And our doors are essentially now done as well. So when we turn everything else back on, we have what you see here. All right, so what we can do now, we can swap all of this glass out with other glass, or we could just make this glass shiny as is. And since it is a separate piece, and come back to object mode, select our glass in the storefront here, come down to our material settings, but you can come in here and change out your material on these windows, going into your shading panel, adding a new material for the windows, specifically clicking on new, and then adding an image here, texture, image texture, coming in here to base color, also moving over and deleting the original. And in image texture, now we can open a new image and just go find the original image that you had, double clicking on it and loading it. And now you can adjust the roughness of the glass separately from everything else. But you do have to create a new material and reapply your image to be able to do that. So if we look on our rendered view here, and I grab my light and move it around, but as I move it, it reflects off of this glass very differently than it does on the building. Because now the glass in front is in fact reflective. And you could do the same thing with the glass on your door or whatever else you may have. So just select the door, and we probably need to go in still and separate that glass from that door. But you get the idea. So now back in layout, I need to show you how to fix the stretching parts. So that's really, really simple. We're just going to go back into the material view here. I'm going to adjust my settings here for my textures because they're a bit shiny. Now our windows are nice and reflective here in the front. But to fix these texture problems, we're going to need to select the object, let's say the doorway here, and we're going to go into our UV editing tab. Once we select it over here as well, I'm going to scroll over into material view here as well. And you can see that when we select this section here, it'll show us over here in the UV layout where that is in relation to the image. Right now we can't see it because it's actually flat and turned on its side, which is no good for us. What I want to do is I'm going to click on any of these stretched sections. You can do them more than one at a time, like I'm doing here. We're going to go to UV, drop that down, and we want to select Cube Projection. And when we do, it lays it out, all of those sections over here in the UV layout window. And if you look, they're corresponding to the parts over here. So I'm going to select those. And you can see now it's trying to put texture on those now that we've cube projected them. But we want to make this wall look something like, the rest of this. So what I'm going to do is select right here to select the island selection and click on this same face that we have selected here. And now we can scale and rotate just like any other object or part of an object in Blender. And I'm just going to shrink this down. I'm going to shrink it this way. And if you watch over here, it's changing as I do this. I'm going to move this up into this section that I want it to have for the inside of the doorway here. And like I said, you can shrink and grow it. Now, this is a quick fix because this is not actually texturing it properly, but it'll give you a lower resolution probably texture than you might want, but it will be way better than those ugly stretching marks that you might have had. So that's one way to do that, short of taking it into something like Substance Painter or Photoshop to fix it. So we can do the same thing with this upper section now. What I want that to look like, I am not sure, but we can just stick it over that same place again if we like. I'm going to make this a bit smaller, move it up and have it use that texture. And you can see when we look up in here, it is now using that texture. Not perfectly, but not bad. This looks like it might want to use the same texture as the sidewalk. So I'm just going to take this and stick it over some of this concrete. And what's cool about this is you can grab this one point at a time if you like here. If you select the vertex selection mode, you can turn off your island selection and select just one vertex, and you can actually align this with that sidewalk to where it will have a straight kind of layout of that. So that can look much more realistic, much better. So now you have a sort of concrete there. So anything you want to change, you can drag around in your UV window to apply that to it in a kind of a way. Now another thing too, let's just fix this side real quick as well. Same thing, I'm just going to stick it in the same place above that I did the others. So we grab to our island selection, so it grabs the entire island here. Can move that up here and then scale and size it as we need. So I'm just going to scale this down instead of up. There we go. You can see it changing in our rendered view or our 3D view over there. I'm just going to kind of keep working this until it's something close to what we want, and then move it, scale it, rotate it, however, just so whatever it's laying over is what it's going to be projecting essentially in this side over here. So not too bad, not perfect, but it's not bad. It is believable. I'm going to rotate this one around actually 180 degrees to where that molding kind of is toward the front and the shadow is toward that back corner, and that'll look a little bit better. You'll never really notice that from here. Now, one of the big problems is this sidewalk looks horrible. These lines are not, they're still in a weird perspective from this picture. So to fix that, we can select the island of the sidewalk by selecting the actual object that it is. Let's figure out which one it is here. I did not name them because I'm very bad. But once we have that one selected right here, when we select a face, let's jump out of our edit mode into our object mode. We will select that object and go back into our edit mode. When we select this face now, you can see that we have a UV for it. we can move that UV around, but I want to straighten out these lines. So the best way to do that is to go into that vertex mode and just angle these. And if you watch my sidewalk, it's going to start to try and straighten out more. If I can actually grab these, it's going to try and straighten out more to look a lot more like that sidewalk does. Now, if we do have problems, which we do, with some of this, it's because we don't have a lot of break up here on our sidewalk as far as our amount of polygons goes. So the way we can fix that is in edit mode, we can create a loop cut right in the middle, and this will start to straighten out. And the more loop cuts you put in here, the more even and regular your textures will become. So that's just a little tip. You don't have to have tons, just enough to kind of tell it, hey, this is here and this is there. And when you jump out of there and kind of, look at a different object now, hopefully you can see that's much better than it was for sure. The street's a little hopeless because you're just taking all of this entire thing and stretching this tiny little bit of texture across that. So it's really not probably going to straighten out as much as we'd like. We can go in here and try to do a little bit of this sort of adjusting with it, but it's really not going to help because it's just too little over too much. The more of an angle you get, the better it looks, of course, but the more you come out across the top, you can see that has been stretched across that, and replacing the street texture would be the best bet. As far as this light goes, we would want to wind up painting that out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We can just keep going through the objects, like taking the wall. I think the wall is okay. We'd want to paint out a couple of those problems, but then we can go down to, let's say, in object mode, select this guy. We're going to want to go through in edit mode and select all of these islands and fix those. So anything basically that is, let's say, this side as an example. I'm just going to switch over to our select box and just sort of drag down some of these to get that side completely selected. And once we do, we can come in here and say, well, what do we want to pull from and throw on that side? I personally think it could be pretty much anything at this point. You can see they're all flattened out to one side. So we have to tell it, use the in UV mode right here, the UV, you come down to cube projection, and it's going to do that for us here. We want to select the entire island, so I'm just going to grab that. I'm going to rotate this around. And remember, anything that this is over is what's going to be showing on our texture here. So, 100 different ways we could do this. It's going to be not seen from this side more than likely very much. So we can just, lay it over something else. But the best way is going to be able to take it into Photoshop or Substance Painter or even here in Blender and repaint or re-project textures onto those. But what I'm going to do is just throw this way. We're going to shrink this down. We're going to use that same larger bit of texture that we have to lay this over. Something kind of like this. Maybe even rotate that the other direction to where, the little bits of the front, the other part is, kind of shaded back there. Let's just move this maybe a little more like that. You can even squish it and make it fit better this way, and move these guys again. Something that just makes it work. It's better definitely than it was, although it's not very high resolution. I think you guys get the idea. And fitting the tops is the same kind of thing. You just grab your pieces here. There are other ways to select these fast, but I'm just using my marquee select. My biz marquee select, grabbing the tops of all this, right clicking and saying, going to UV and selecting Cube Projection. Once again, we are here, and it's just a matter of scaling this and placing it over something that makes sense. So we're going to grab this, we're going to scale this. This can go kind of anywhere. Just gonna scale this up a bit like that, and maybe move it over here. Not perfect, but it has something on it that seems to make a little more sense. If we want to rotate that, maybe it'll look better the other direction. It's a cheat, granted, but it's, like I said, it's better than having a bunch of stretched textures on there instead. So all of these can be done, and then they can be done separately or together, or however it works out best. Once again, UV, Cube Projection. Then just grab this, scale it, move it where you need it to be. Another place we could put this, I suppose, is along maybe the side of one of these, right over here. Shrink that down. Like I said, the more you shrink this, though, the worse your texture resolution is going to be. But sometimes it doesn't matter as much. The best thing to do is to make a brand new good texture for it. Cool. So we can, I think, maybe put this in a better place than I've got it. This isn't really the best. It's just an example, though. Something like that. You get the idea, but I think overall it looks pretty decent. And most of the stretching is gone except for, let's say, this area here. You can just extrude these walls back to make walls if you like. And then we can turn on the lights and you get that kind of a vibe. I'm going to jump back over to layout mode and grab wherever these lights are at. We can stick this where our light would be, essentially, if it was here. Kind of faking that light a little bit. Let's just see what it looks like here. We can turn up the power of this light a little bit. Something like that. All right, I hope this helped and made sense to you guys. And there will be a lot more of this kind of stuff coming.